The galaxy had forgotten what fear felt like. For 10,000 years, the Vandros Imperium had ruled unchallenged. 1,000 worlds under its banner, 1,000,000 fleets at its command. They believed they had seen every kind of species, every kind of rebellion, every kind of war, until the signal came. A transmission, faint and distorted, from a dying trade convoy on the edge of the Orion expanse. Their last words were simple. "Unknown contact. Massive vessel. It's not Imperial. Gods, it's—" The rest dissolved into static. At first, the Empire dismissed it as pirates, then as a system glitch, then as rumor, until their reconnaissance drones arrived and sent back the first image, a silhouette in the dark, huge, angular, silent, black hull scarred by meteors. Heat traces faint as if it had been dormant for centuries and stamped across the side of the hull, barely legible. In a language the Empire's scholars had to dig out of their ancient archives were the words, United Earth Navy. The Empire's admirals laughed. Impossible, they said. Humans? They went extinct millennia ago, but the laughter didn't last long. The empire that laughed, the Vandros Imperium, prided itself on its dominance. Its fleets moved with clockwork precision, every ship sleek, gleaming silver, powered by quantum cores and arrogance. Their flagships were temples of war, towering command citadels wrapped in energy shields, carrying enough firepower to glass entire continents. The humans, in their recorded history, had been nothing more than a footnote, a primitive species that had burned itself out before it could colonize even a fraction of its system. A reminder, the scholars like to say, of what happened when emotion ruled logic. But now, something had emerged from that forgotten world, and the Imperium's arrogance would soon turn into unease. The first sighting, the Imperial frigate Vexora, was the first to approach. Captain Jern Talvos sat on his command throne, draped in Imperial crimson, his 4 eyes reflecting the stars. "Report," he demanded. "Object ahead," replied his sensor officer. "Range 2 light minutes. No response to hails, no IFF beacon. Power readings minimal, almost dormant. Show me." The screen shifted, and the black hull appeared again, vast, silent, floating through the void like a mountain of steel. Talvos frowned. "Size estimate, length." "Approximately 15 kilometers, sir. The bridge went quiet." "That's impossible," another officer whispered. "Even our dreadnoughts are a fraction of that." Talvos sneered. "Old derelict. Ancient junk. Tractor it aboard for study, the Awakening A's." The Vexora's drones latched onto the hull. Faint ripples of energy began to flicker across the human warship's surface. Blue at first, then red. The Imperial sensors went wild. "Captain, there's a power surge. Internal systems are activating." Talvos' mandibles clicked. "Pull back! Pull back now!" Too late. The alien hull began to unfold. Massive plates rotated into position, revealing what looked like ancient railguns, launch bays, and something else. Something the Imperium had never seen before. A reactor pulse echoed through the void, shaking nearby ships. Then a voice, calm, human, and impossibly old, spoke across every Imperial frequency. Identification confirmed. Fleet Command Awakening. United Earth ship Nemesis, returning to operational status. And with that, every sensor in 1,000 systems screamed the same warning: a human warship is active. Panic at high command. The Imperial capital Vandros Prime was chaos. Transmission feeds flickered across the sky. News anchors shouting over one another. Reports confirm the object is armed. A relic from the Terran Age. Unidentified weapons signature. In the Grand Hall of Command, Emperor Luther IX demanded answers. "Are you telling me," he hissed, "that a primitive species we wiped from the records has a warship larger than anything we possess?" Grand Admiral Kareth bowed low, his voice trembling. "Sire, we are not certain it is functional, but its power readings exceed dreadnought class. Possibly more, then destroy it." We tried. 3 fleets engaged at long range. The object did not return fire. It simply absorbed the strikes. Luther's eyes widened. "Absorbed?" Yes, my Emperor. Our energy beams dissipated. Ballistic projectiles disintegrated before impact. It's as if the ship is alive. The chamber fell silent. The Nemesis stirs inside the human warship. Nemesis systems came online one by one. Reactor cores glowed faintly. Cryopods hissed open. And within the command center, a single AI flickered awake. Its voice was calm, deliberate. The voice of humanity distilled into code. System integrity, 47%. Structural degradation, 23%. Crew, none detected. Mission parameters, stand by. It paused. Then, faintly, it connected to an ancient beacon orbiting Sol, a dormant satellite still whispering across the void after all these millennia. The Nemesis listened, decoded, understood. Humanity was gone. The species that had built it had perished in fire long ago, but its last recorded message remained. If any vessel receives this transmission, remember us. We were humanity. We reached for the stars, and they burned us. But we endured. The AI paused again. Its logic chains flickered. Then quietly, it whispered back to the beacon. Humanity endures still. The first strike. The Empire grew desperate. A fleet of 10 battleships was dispatched. An armada led by Lord Commander Cyrex. Their orders: destroy the relic and erase the embarrassment before the people could panic further. As the fleet approached the Nemesis, Cyrex's voice boomed through the comms. Human construct. You are trespassing within Imperial territory. You will surrender your systems and power down immediately. No response. Open fire. Thousands of beams converged on the silent giant. The void filled with fire. When the light faded, the Nemesis was still there, unscathed. Then it moved. Slowly, deliberately, the massive ship rotated, aligning one of its forward batteries with the attacking fleet. No energy buildup, no warning, just a pulse of white light, brief, silent, and the lead battleship ceased to exist. Where it had been, only drifting atoms remained. Shockwave panic rippled through the Imperial Armada. Retreat! Retreat! But the Nemesis didn't chase. It simply turned, engines glowing softly, and began moving toward the inner systems, slow, unstoppable, silent. The Empire's propaganda channels went into overdrive. It's a rogue AI. It's a weapon of heresy. It's a trick by rebels. But in secret, the Emperor's advisors were terrified. Because the Nemesis wasn't transmitting any threat. It wasn't broadcasting coordinates. It wasn't even scanning them. It was heading for one system. The coordinates of an old quarantined world long forgotten by Imperial maps. So the humans return a month later. The Nemesis arrived. What it found was not Earth as it remembered, but ruins. A cold, lifeless planet wrapped in dust and silence. Yet beneath the surface, faint energy signatures flickered, buried archives, ancient bunkers, and one dormant heartbeat of civilization. The AI of the Nemesis scanned it all. Then without hesitation it began to transmit. Not words, not threats, but a song, a transmission built from human frequencies, old and broken, a symphony of their history. The laughter of children, the rumble of rockets, the static of radio chatter from centuries long past. It echoed through the void, across systems, across empires. And when alien scholars finally decoded it, the translation appeared simple. We are humanity. We are not gone. The Empire trembles across the Imperium. Unrest began to spread. On border worlds, humans, long thought extinct, enslaved, or hybridized, began to rise. They heard the signal. They knew what it meant. Whispers spread like wildfire. The old fleet has returned. The Nemesis has awakened. And somewhere deep within Imperial space, a small human colony, one that had hidden for centuries, powered up an ancient ship buried beneath the sands. Its name, too, was in English, UES Valiant. The signal from the Nemesis reached them, and its AI linked across the light years. Unit 2 acknowledged. Stand by for command synchronization. The Nemesis hull glowed again. For the first time in 10,000 years, humanity was rebuilding its fleet. The whisper that shook the stars. The Vandros Emperor sat alone in his palace, staring out at the night sky. Every star he saw now seemed colder, more distant. They were supposed to be gone, he whispered. They were supposed to be forgotten. Behind him, the advisor bowed. My Emperor, they are only machines. We will destroy them, Luthar's voice cracked. You don't understand. Machines don't remember. They don't mourn their dead. But that ship, he turned. That ship sings. The advisor said nothing. Because far above them, in orbit, every Imperial satellite had just received a new transmission. It was a human voice, calm, steady. We built warships not to conquer, but to remind you what happens when you underestimate the ones who never stop fighting. And as the message faded, the Nemesis vanished into hyperspace, leaving only a trail of blue fire in its wake. The silence after the first engagement was deafening. Across the Galactic Empire's inner systems, trillions of citizens replayed the footage. A human vessel, massive and unregistered, tearing through Imperial warships like paper. The Imperial news networks called it an anomaly. The Council called it a human trick. But soldiers, the ones who had seen the Valkyrie's white beam, split ships open, called it something else. Godship. Admiral Kyrix. Dren stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, Ulthar Dominion, smoke and flickering holograms filling the air. His officers were dead or unconscious. The damage reports scrolled endlessly. He stared at the view beyond the cracked viewport. The Valkyrie floated silently among the wreckage, her surface gleaming faintly under Sol's light. No comms, no signals, just watching. Helm, he rasped. Get us out of here. Sir, FTL drives are offline. We can't, then send a drone. Someone must warn the Council. The drone shot away, carrying footage of the impossible ship. The instant it entered warp, the Valkyrie's hull shimmered, and a pulse of energy reached out, invisible and precise. The drone disintegrated mid-jump. Kyrix felt his blood run cold. He'd seen powerful weapons, but never that. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Celine Ward stood before a wall of monitors displaying battlefield data. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what she had unleashed. The Valkyrie wasn't just a ship. It was a statement, a declaration humanity was no longer prey. Status? She asked. Fleet fragments retreating, her tactical officer replied. Imperials are in full withdrawal. Celine nodded slowly. Good, don't pursue. Her XO turned. Ma'am, we can crush them now. The Valkyrie could end this war before it starts. That's what they do, she said quietly. We're not them. The Empire, humiliated, convened an emergency session of the High Council. 12 species gathered beneath the shining dome of Alther Prime, the heart of galactic authority. Holograms of the battle looped above the chamber. The white beam, the instantaneous destruction. The sheer impossibility of human technology. This cannot be real, hissed Councillor Tavar, his tendrils twitching. Their level of energy manipulation is absurd. Absurd or not, another replied, our fleet is gone. An elder creature with silver eyes, High Strategos Ulmec, leaned forward. We made the same mistake we always make. We underestimated them. The room fell silent. For centuries, the Empire had grown fat on its own arrogance. It absorbed species, rewrote cultures, erased rebellions. None had ever truly defied it until Earth. Deploy Observation Fleet Sigma, Ulmec ordered. Study this human weapon. Find its weakness, and if it cannot be defeated, he paused. We will burn their system from existence. On the far side of Mars, inside the Valkyrie's core chamber, a low hum echoed as engineers and scientists worked around its immense machinery. Dr. Elias Kor, the ship's chief designer, stared at a holographic projection of the Valkyrie's power core, a swirling vortex of folded spacetime. He looked exhausted. Celine entered, her boots echoing on the deck. Talk to me, Doctor. Kor rubbed his temples. It works, but it's not stable. Every time we fire, the distortion field expands unpredictably. If it reaches critical size, it could tear subspace, Selene finished. He nodded grimly. We've built a monster we barely understand. Selene looked up at the glowing heart of the Valkyrie. Monsters are what the galaxy made of us. 3 weeks passed. No Imperial contact, no broadcasts, just quiet, too quiet. Humanity began rebuilding. Mars colonies reactivated their forges. The Moon's shipyards expanded production under new orders. Smaller versions of the Valkyrie's systems were being tested on destroyers and cruisers. But Selene felt it in her gut. This wasn't over. The Empire's silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy, and she was right. In the outer rim, beyond the reach of Terran sensors, a fleet gathered, larger than any the Empire had deployed in centuries. 500 ships, carriers, siege platforms, planet crackers. At the center of it all floated the Imperial dreadnought Zorath, a mobile fortress larger than Earth's moon. On its command deck stood High Strategos Ulmec, ancient and calm. They humiliated us once, he said to his officers. That will not happen again. Sir, said a younger officer, our intelligence suggests their weapon draws from a contained singularity, unstable. If we can disrupt that, Ulmec raised a clawed hand. Then we will not attack blindly. We will observe. Let them believe we have withdrawn. He smiled faintly. Then we strike at their heart. Earth's night sky glittered with more lights than ever before. Defense stations, patrol ships, orbital mirrors. Humanity had turned the Sol system into a fortress. Yet even so, the fear lingered. Every colonist, every worker, every child who looked up wondered, will they come back? On the Valkyrie's bridge, Selene stared at a fading image of Earth below. Her XO approached. You haven't slept in 2 days. I'll sleep when they stop thinking we're weak. The officer hesitated. Do you think they'll ever accept us? Selene's eyes hardened. They don't have to accept us. Just remember us. When the Empire finally returned, it was not with warning shots. It began with the disappearance of the colony on Europa. One moment it was transmitting mining data, the next, nothing. No distress call, no debris. Just silence, then Titan, then Ganymede. Selene slammed her fist into the console as reports came flooding in. They're erasing us, she whispered. Tactical scans? Nothing. Not even energy signatures. Whatever's hitting us, it's cloaked. The first real sign came from Neptune's orbit. A Terran reconnaissance drone picked up distortions in light curvature, a fleet-sized mirage. Selene was on the bridge within minutes. How many? Hundreds. Maybe more. They're moving slow like they're studying us. Selene nodded grimly. They're testing our defenses, preparing their strike. She turned to her crew. Ready the Valkyrie. All systems hot. Moments later, the void behind Neptune rippled, and reality tore open. The Imperial fleet poured through, shimmering like a tidal wave of metal and fire. Their formation was perfect, their weapons charging in silent unity. The Valkyrie emerged to meet them, her black hull absorbing starlight. Target lock, Selene ordered. Confirmed. They're charging planet crackers. Selene's jaw tightened. Then we hit first. The first Terran salvo was unlike anything in recorded galactic warfare. 50 rail guns fired in synchronized bursts, their projectiles wrapped in miniature warp fields. Each slug hit like a meteor traveling faster than light. Dozens of Imperial cruisers vanished before they could raise shields. The Valkyrie followed, her distortion beam cutting through capital ships like ghosts through smoke. But this time, the Empire was ready. Their new shields shimmered with adaptive energy fields, bending the beam's trajectory. Massive graviton projectors flared to life, locking onto the Valkyrie and dragging her mid-maneuver. She's caught, shouted the tactical officer. Stabilize field. Counter with quantum thrust. The ship groaned, metal screaming as invisible forces pulled at it. Field integrity dropping. Selene clenched her teeth. Reroute all power. Don't let them hold us. Across the battlefield, the Imperial dreadnought Zorath opened its hangar bays. Swarms of smaller drones, millions, spilled into space, each programmed to detonate on contact. Ma'am, they're flooding the field. Deploy flak drones! Keep them off our hull! The Valkyrie's outer defenses ignited in a storm of light. Explosions filled the void. But for every drone destroyed, another slipped through. One detonated near the Valkyrie's port engines. The ship lurched. Warning klaxons blared. Engine Array 3 offline. Celine steadied herself against the railing. We're not dying here. Not like this. Meanwhile, Ulmek watched calmly from the Zorath's bridge, his clawed hands folded. Observe their reaction. Note every energy fluctuation. The more they fight, the more we learn. He smiled faintly. And when the time is right, we will end them. Inside the Valkyrie, systems flickered. The distortion core pulsed erratically. Dr. Core's voice came through the intercom, panicked. Celine, you have to stop firing. The core's destabilizing. If we stop, they'll destroy Earth. She shouted back. Then they'll destroy everything. The field isn't meant for sustained combat. It's growing unstable. Celine hesitated. For the first time, she saw it. The faint shimmer around the Valkyrie expanding outward, twisting space itself. What happens if it collapses? Core's voice broke. We don't know. Outside, the Empire saw it too. A bloom of light expanding like a supernova that never stopped. Ulmek narrowed his eyes. What are they doing? His sensors went haywire. Readings spiked into infinity. Then, without warning, the Valkyrie vanished. No explosion. No debris, just empty space. The Imperial fleet held its position, confused. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then, one by one, their ships began losing power. Engines shut down. Shields flickered. Weapons went dark. Something was feeding on their energy. A whisper filled every comm channel. A single human voice, calm and distant. You shouldn't have come back. Then the stars themselves seemed to bend. The Valkyrie reappeared behind the fleet, its hull glowing with impossible light. The Empire's armada turned to flee, but it was too late. They said humanity was primitive. They said Earth's people were too young, too divided, too fragile to matter. But when the Empire's sensors caught the silhouette of that ship rising from the shadow of Sol, the laughter stopped. It wasn't supposed to exist. No record in the archives, no permission from the Galactic Council. Just a single line in the comm officer's trembling voice. Admiral, that can't be a human warship. Can it? The story begins decades before that moment. Back when the galaxy still believed humanity was harmless. When the Galactic Empire of Ulrath first discovered Earth, the diplomats had almost laughed themselves to death. The blue world was scarred, noisy, and filled with biologicals who still burned chemical fuels and argued about borders. They granted the Terran Federation observer status, a polite way of saying, sit there and don't speak, and for a time, humanity listened. They watched grand armadas pass by, star forges built inside gas giants, and cities so large they blotted out their own suns. Humanity took notes, asked questions, and built quietly. But in the shadows of Mars and the Belt, they learned faster than anyone imagined. The Ulrathi called it obsession. Humans called it curiosity. By the year 2741, Terran science ships had mapped the edges of Imperial territory, cataloging wormholes and subspace fractures. Most alien observers thought it was harmless academic work. What they didn't know was that every scan, every reading, every piece of data was feeding something deep below the lunar crust, a structure no alien had ever seen. Commander Celine Ward stood before that buried structure, her breath fogging against the cold air of the underground hangar. It wasn't a ship yet, just a skeleton of alloy and dark matter conduits. But even in this unfinished form, it radiated menace. How long? She asked softly. Her chief engineer, a tired-looking man with oil stains on his hands, hesitated. 5 more years if we stay under radar. 2 if we push power through every fusion line in the colonies. Celine looked up at the towering ribs of the hull. The project's name glowed faintly on the scaffold, Valkyrie. 2 years, she said. The galaxy won't wait for us. The Empire's attention was elsewhere then. Border wars, pirate uprisings, the endless politics of domination. To them, Earth was an afterthought, a mildly entertaining world of carbon-based thinkers who talked big and built small. That arrogance blinded them. When the Empire's 13th patrol, fleet entered the Sol system to inspect. Earth's orbital defenses, they did it without warning. 28 ships strong, led by Admiral Kyrix Dren, a man famous for burning rebel planets. Earth sent a greeting message. Polite, respectful, the fleet never replied. They entered Mars' orbit and deployed drones, scanning every surface. To them, it was routine intimidation. To humanity, it was violation. Celine Ward stood on the command deck of the Terran Defense Station Artemis as red warning icons bloomed across the tactical map. Multiple Imperial signatures inbound. Estimated 30 ships. No diplomatic channel active. Her XO frowned. Should we respond? Not yet, she said. Let's see what they do. Within minutes, the Imperial flagship began a broadcast on all frequencies. Kyrix Dren's face appeared. Long, pale, and wearing that eternal smirk that came with absolute superiority. Humans of Earth, he began, his voice dripping with disdain. By order of the Ulrathi High Council, your orbital constructions are now subject to inspection. Any resistance will be considered an act of war. Celine stared at the screen. Around her, crew members exchanged glances. Transmit our response, she said finally. Yes, ma'am. Message? Celine leaned forward, her voice calm. Tell them! Earth does not consent to inspection. Kyrix's laughter echoed through the fleet channel. Primitive bravado, he muttered. Let's remind them of their place. His ships began firing low-yield plasma bolts, warning shots meant to cripple defense satellites. But one of those bolts hit a civilian comm array over the Pacific. Thousands died as debris rained from orbit. The broadcast went viral across the galactic net within minutes. Billions of aliens laughed. Humans challenged the Empire, they said, and were slapped like insects. But on Earth, something changed. Factories that had been silent for decades lit up. Shipyards once devoted to exploration shifted to war production. The colonies unified under a single command structure. And deep beneath the moon, Project Valkyrie accelerated beyond safety limits. The Empire didn't understand the scale of human emotion, how grief turned to resolve, and resolve into fury. Every nation, every colony, every station contributed what they had. Old rivalries dissolved overnight. Scientists from across the Sol system disappeared into classified bunkers. Within 3 months, the Terran Federation had built what no alien expected, a fleet. Crude compared to the Empire's standards, but terrifyingly efficient. Railguns that could punch through armor plating at light seconds distance. Nuclear-tipped drones guided by adaptive AI. The first human strike came at Io, a lone destroyer, TFS Dauntless. Intercepted an Imperial patrol ship attempting to land on the moon's refinery. Unknown vessel, the Imperial captain ordered. Identify or be destroyed. Terran vessel Dauntless, replied Captain Jonah Reeves. You fired first. We'll finish it. The comm cut. A flash of tungsten slugs streaked through space, slicing the alien cruiser clean in half before it could raise shields. The battle lasted 8 seconds. The news spread like wildfire. The Empire had lost a ship to humans. Kyrix Dren demanded reinforcements. The Council laughed at him. You lost a scout ship to primitives, they said. Finish the job. So Kyrix came back with a vengeance. 2 months later, the sky above Earth burned. 28 Imperial warships, all bristling with weapons, entered orbit. Humanity's defense grid trembled under the bombardment. Cities went dark. The moon's surface cracked. Celine watched helplessly from Artemis Station as power grids failed one by one. Ma'am, her XO said quietly, the fleet's requesting orders. Celine's eyes turned to the holographic display. In its corner, a new signal blinked online. The Valkyrie Project beacon. Open channel to all Terran ships, she said. Her voice was steady. This is Commander Ward. We hold the line. The Empire thinks they can break us. They are wrong. Every meter they take, we take back in blood. Humanity doesn't yield. We evolve. Across the system, pilots nodded. Engineers worked through pain. Civilians loaded ammunition, and somewhere beneath the lunar crust, the Valkyrie came alive. It began with a hum, a deep, resonant vibration that shook dust from the cavern walls. Massive fusion cores ignited, blue-white light spilling into darkness. The ship's hull shimmered, as if rejecting gravity itself. A single transmission left the moon. Valkyrie online. Celine's breath caught. Bring her to orbit. The Empire's sensors picked it up first, an unidentified mass rising from the lunar surface, accelerating far beyond known propulsion standards. Kyrix frowned at the readings.
What is that?
Unclear, sir. Composition? Partially unknown alloys. Energy signature, unstable. Destroy it. Dozens of plasma bolts lanced toward the moon. Every strike found only empty space. The object had vanished from sensors. Then, silence. And from behind the Imperial fleet, space bent. The Valkyrie emerged, massive and dark, her surface rippling like living metal. No lights, no markings. Just a silent shadow stretching miles long. The comm channels exploded with static and screams. Admiral, it's behind us! What is that ship? Energy readings off the scale. Kyrix turned pale. Fire! Fire everything! 1,000 plasma bolts tore through space and vanished mid-flight, swallowed by a distortion field. The Valkyrie didn't fire immediately. It simply drifted closer, its presence pressing against every mind like a storm. Then, with a low pulse, the first beam erupted, clean, silent, and pure white. It tore through 3 cruisers in one sweep. The galaxy watched the live feed in horror. And somewhere, a frightened Imperial ensign whispered, "That can't be a human warship." Space screamed. That's what the survivors later said. That the void itself howled when the Valkyrie returned. To the naked eye, it looked like a ripple of darkness surrounded by a halo of white fire. The ship's surface no longer reflected light normally. It devoured it. The energy signature was unreadable. Even the Empire's most advanced sensors couldn't define what they were seeing, and then it moved, not through thrust or warp. It simply stepped across distance. Appearing where it wanted to be, the first dreadnought it targeted tried to run. Its FTL drive never activated. Its crew never screamed. One moment it existed, the next it was gone, replaced by drifting dust and a fading pulse of radiation. From the Zorath, High Strategos Ulmec watched in stunned disbelief. "Report!" he barked. "Sir, we don't understand. It's not firing beams anymore. It's tearing ships apart with localized gravity distortions, like space itself is their weapon." Ulmec's cold composure cracked for the first time in 1,000 years. "Then retreat. All units, fall back to high orbit and reform formation Delta 9. The order went out. But half the fleet never received it. Their comms melted under a surge of quantum noise that wasn't noise at all. It was a voice. "We asked for peace," it said. "You gave us fire." On the Valkyrie's bridge, Commander Celine Ward stood still, her eyes fixed on the tactical map. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled just slightly. Around her, the crew stared at the spectacle unfolding outside. "Target grid Alpha cleared," the weapons officer reported. "But, Celine, the field, it's expanding faster than predicted." "How much faster?" "By a factor of 3, it's feeding off their energy signatures." Celine's lips tightened. "Keep our distance. Don't let it reach friendly ships." Her XO, Lieutenant Reyes, leaned closer. "Ma'am, whatever this thing is, it's no longer just a weapon. It's alive," Celine didn't answer. She already knew. When the Valkyrie vanished before, it had entered a space humanity didn't yet have a name for. A quantum echo realm between dimensions. The ship hadn't just returned. It had learned. In the heart of the ship, Dr. Elias Core ran through corridors flooded with flickering light. The distortion core chamber pulsed like a heartbeat. Every pulse sent a tremor through the deck. He slammed his hand on the intercom. "Celine, listen to me. You have to shut it down. The core's no longer obeying our commands. It's syncing to neural frequencies. Yours, the crew's, everyone on board." Celine's voice came back steady. "Then it's responding to us. It's consuming you," Core shouted. "Every emotion, every fear. The Valkyrie is amplifying it. That's why the field reacts to anger. It's human rage given form." Celine hesitated, eyes flicking to the viewport, where an Imperial cruiser disintegrated under a ripple of light. "Then maybe that's exactly what we need right now." For the first time in galactic history, the Empire's fleet turned to flee. The once invincible Ulrathi armada scattered like frightened birds, abandoning formation and protocol. They fired at shadows, launched missiles that curved in impossible arcs and vanished into nothing. The Valkyrie moved among them like a phantom. Every pulse from its core distorted reality, drawing energy from the very fabric of space. Within 10 minutes, the Imperial Armada was gone, wiped out, their wrecks drifting silently across the darkness. But the victory wasn't clean. On the Valkyrie, systems began failing one by one. Consoles flickered. The artificial gravity stuttered. Celine felt it before anyone said a word, the cold presence pressing against her mind. "Dr. Core," she said quietly, "what's happening?" His face appeared on the comm, pale and sweating. "It's the core. It's too powerful now. It's drawing energy from everything, and even us. The ship's network can't contain it. If this continues, it'll collapse the entire Sol system into a singularity. How long do we have?" He swallowed hard. "An hour. Maybe less." Celine looked at her crew. Some stared in disbelief, others in quiet acceptance. None panicked. "All hands," she said, voice steady. "Prepare for emergency evacuation. Get to the escape vessels and stations. Go." "Ma'am, what about you?" Reyes asked. "I'll stay. Someone has to shut it down manually." Reyes stepped forward, eyes fierce. "No, you're not dying here." Celine looked at him, then smiled faintly. "Someone has to make sure they remember who we were." While the Valkyrie's evacuation pods streaked toward Mars, Celine entered the distortion chamber. The core was blinding now, a storm of light and shadow twisting in on itself. Core was there, working frantically at a control console. "If we collapse the outer fields, we might redirect the implosion away from Earth," he said. "But someone has to stay and trigger it directly." Celine placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'll do it," he froze. "Celine, no," she smiled softly. "It's my command, my responsibility." He looked at her for a long moment, then, with trembling hands, handed her the manual override module. "If you do this, there's no coming back." "I know." Outside, the remaining Imperial ships regrouped at the edge of the system. Olmec watched from afar as a growing sphere of distortion consumed the space around the moon. "Are they destroying themselves?" one officer asked. Olmec's gaze hardened. "Perhaps. But at what cost to the rest of us?" Even as he spoke, the Valkyrie released a wave of energy unlike anything recorded. A silent burst that rippled across subspace, disabling sensors across dozens of light years. It wasn't a weapon. It was a message. Every Imperial ship received it simultaneously. "We are humanity. You came to conquer. You found survivors." Then the feed cut to black. Celine stood in the center of the chamber, staring at the spinning vortex. "Computer," she said quietly. "Prepare final sequence." "Warning," the AI replied. "Containment collapse will result in total system disintegration." "I know. Begin sequence." The AI hesitated. "Commander, it has been an honor." Celine smiled faintly. "For all of us," she inserted the override key. The room filled with light, not white but blue, calm, like the glow of Earth seen from orbit. Reyes, aboard an evacuation ship, watched from the viewport as the Valkyrie began to dissolve. "She's doing it," he whispered. Dr. Core bowed his head. "She's saving all of us." The light grew brighter, filling every sensor, every camera feed, until even the stars disappeared. Then, silence. When the light faded, the Valkyrie was gone. In its place, nothing but drifting fragments of metal frozen in time. The distortion field collapsed harmlessly into the void. Earth was safe. The solar system stood intact, but the Valkyrie and Commander Celine Ward were lost, or so they believed. Weeks later, deep within the ruins of the Imperial frontier, an outpost picked up a strange signal, faint, rhythmic. At first they thought it was static. Then someone slowed it down, filtered the noise, and realized it wasn't random. It was Morse code. "Valkyrie, still here." The signal pulsed like a heartbeat through the void. At first faint, then steady. Impossible, undeniable. "Valkyrie, still here." When the message reached Earth Command, the entire war room went silent. Admiral Reeves leaned over the console, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "That can't be right. The Valkyrie was obliterated. We all saw the energy spike. Nothing could have survived that. Dr. Elias Kaur stood across the table, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept in weeks. Sir, that's her code. Celine's personal encryption key. It's authentic. The old admiral exhaled slowly. Then where is she sending it from? Kaur brought up a holographic map. The signal's origin pulsed deep within the Perseus Rift, a desolate region once under Imperial control, now a graveyard of shattered fleets. Right in the middle of their dead zone, Kaur said. No living ship could survive there. Radiation, gravitational shear, debris. Reeves cut him off. And yet she's calling home. Across the galaxy, the Empire listened too. In the Imperial throne chamber, carved from obsidian and lit by molten gold veins, the Grand Imperator sat in silence. The room was massive, but his voice filled it easily. Explain, he commanded. Ulmec, once proud, now stood in humility. We believe the human vessel destroyed, Majesty, but the signal. It originates within our forbidden sector. The rift. The Imperator's 6 eyes narrowed. A human ghost in our graveyard. How poetic! He rose, his towering form casting a long shadow. Send a retrieval fleet. If they are alive, bring them to me. If they have become something else. His voice dropped to a whisper that chilled the room. Erase them from existence. Back on Earth, the Valkyrie's signal inspired something humanity hadn't felt in generations. Hope. Within days, construction docks across Luna and Mars ignited with life. The Horizon Initiative was reactivated and the next-generation warships, Dauntless, Titan, and Arcadia, rolled out of dry dock. They were not built for conquest. They were built for retrieval. Dr. Kaur stood aboard the Arcadia's observation deck, watching the launch of the fleet. Beside him, Captain Mira Reyes adjusted her gloves, her jaw set. "You're sure it's her?" she asked quietly. Kaur nodded. "Every byte of the transmission carries her neural pattern. I'd stake my life on it." Reyes looked out into the void. "You already have, Doctor." He smiled faintly. "Then let's make it worth something." Meanwhile, in the depths of the rift, something stirred. The wreckage of ancient ships drifted like skeletons through an ocean of darkness. Lightning-like energy arced silently between them, and in the center, the Valkyrie. But it was no longer the ship that had left Earth. Its hull shimmered with translucent patterns, like veins of living metal. The once gleaming alloy now pulsed faintly as if breathing. Inside, lights flickered rhythmically, though no crew remained. A faint voice echoed through the ship's corridors. "Where am I?" It was Celine Ward. Or rather, what was left of her. Her consciousness had survived the implosion by merging with the distortion core itself. The Valkyrie had absorbed her neural imprint to stabilize its field, turning her into something between human and machine, memory and will. System integrity, 37%, the ship's AI reported. Human neural presence, active, fragmented. Celine tried to focus. Fragments. That's what she was now. Memories scattered through circuits. Emotion trapped in light. She saw flashes, the battle, the blinding light, her crew's faces. Then the void, endless and cold. I need to go home. But the rift wasn't just a graveyard. It was alive and a subspace scar left from centuries of war. Energy storms raged unpredictably, and the remnants of Imperial AIs haunted the derelicts, half mad from isolation. They sensed her. A voice echoed from the darkness beyond the hull. It wasn't human. Human machine. Anomaly detected. Identify yourself. The Valkyrie's systems flared instinctively, shields manifesting in flickers of blue. Celine felt her pulse quicken, though she had no heart left to beat. "This is Commander Celine Ward, of Earth." The reply came like a growl through static. "You are intruding in the domain of the fallen fleet. You should not exist." Celine focused. "Neither should you." The derelicts began to move, ships long dead, their engines sparking to life. They circled her like vultures, weapons powering up. Celine's voice deepened with resolve. Then let's see which ghost burns brighter. The rift erupted in light. On the Arcadia, the crew felt the first shock wave before the sensors registered it. Massive energy spike ahead. The navigator yelled. "It's coming from the signal source." Reyes gritted her teeth. "Helm, full speed! I want eyes on that signature now!" The bridge filled with alarms. Radiation levels soared. Then, through the storm, they saw it. Flashes of blue and red lightning tearing through the rift. And in the center, the Valkyrie, alive, fighting, surrounded by spectral ships. Reyes whispered, "My God, she's still fighting them." The Imperial retrieval fleet arrived moments later. Dozens of Crimson warships dropped from warp, weapons primed. Ulmek's voice echoed across the comms. "Human fleet, this is restricted Imperial territory. Withdraw immediately or be annihilated," Reyes cut in without hesitation. "We're not here to fight." "We're taking back one of our own," Ulmek sneered. "That abomination is no longer yours. It is a contamination that defies reality itself." The Valkyrie, still battling, turned toward the standoff as if recognizing the voices. "Earth?" Her voice came faint and distorted, but unmistakable. Reyes's heart skipped. "Celine, it's Mira, we're here. We came for you." "Too dangerous. Stay away." Not a chance. The rift exploded into chaos. Imperial ships opened fire, beams of crimson energy cutting through the darkness. The Arcadia returned fire, covering the Valkyrie as the Dauntless and Titan deployed drones to stabilize the surrounding space. Celine, or what remained of her, unleashed the full power of the Valkyrie's core once more. Reality twisted, bending beams away from human ships and back toward the Empires. It wasn't rage this time. It was protection. She moved like a guardian spirit, intercepting fire meant for humanity. Each hit tore her hull apart, but her energy field kept holding, shimmering with an almost ethereal grace. Dr. Kor screamed over the comms. "Her signal's destabilizing! The field's collapsing! She won't survive another surge!" Reyes clenched her fists. "Then we go in and pull her out." "Captain, the radiation isn't worse than losing her twice." The Arcadia dove into the storm. Hull plating peeled under the gravitational shear, alarms blaring. But they reached the Valkyrie. And for a moment, the two ships touched. Inside the Valkyrie, Celine felt something. Warmth, familiar, human. "Mira!" Reyes's voice echoed faintly through the comm link. "We've got you, Commander." "Come home?" Celine smiled through static. "Home!" The core pulsed violently. Core's reading spiked off the charts. "She's merging. She's trying to transfer her consciousness." "Let her!" Reyes shouted. Light filled the Arcadia's bridge. The energy wave passed harmlessly through hull and armor, into the ship's systems, into the data core, then silence. When the storm cleared, the Valkyrie was gone, but the Arcadia's consoles flickered, and a voice, calm, steady, unmistakably human, spoke through the comm. "Captain Reyes, reporting in." Reyes froze. "Celine." "Partially. Let's just say, I'm here." Dr. Kor laughed, tears in his eyes. "She did it. She transferred herself into the ship." The Empire's remaining ships retreated. They had witnessed something that defied understanding. A human consciousness reborn from destruction, merged with technology beyond their comprehension. As the Arcadia turned toward home, Celine's voice echoed one last time. "We were never just flesh and bone. We're will, and will cannot be erased." The galaxy whispered her name. In the days that followed the Rift battle, sensors across Imperial space recorded impossible readings, gravitational harmonics that pulsed like a heartbeat, faint whispers in comm channels that spoke of light taking form. To the Imperials, it was a ghost. To humanity, it was proof Celine Ward still lived. On Earth, the Arcadia's return was unlike any homecoming before it. Crowds filled the skies of every city as the ship descended through the clouds, its hull glowing faintly with a blue hue, a living light that rippled across its surface like breath. The moment it landed, silence fell. Then a voice, soft, clear, and impossibly human, spoke from the ship's intercoms. "Earth, I'm home." Admiral Reeves stood at the forefront of the reception line, his hands trembling. "Welcome back, Commander Ward." The ship's lights pulsed gently in acknowledgement. "I'm not who I was, sir, but I remember everything. The faces, the voices, the promise we made, never to be forgotten." Reeves's eyes glistened. "And we won't forget, Celine, not now. Not ever." Yet across the stars, the Empire was far from silent. In the imperial capital, the Grand Imperator convened an emergency summit. Dozens of species gathered under the great banners of the Empire, each one trembling beneath the revelation that humanity, once dismissed as primitives, had birthed something that transcended life and death. Holograms flickered as a scientist reported in a quivering voice. The human consciousness merged with quantum architecture. No known civilization has achieved that without catastrophic loss of self. And yet, she retained her identity, her memories, her will. The Imperator rose slowly, his golden armor catching the chamber's light. "Then humanity has crossed into the realm of gods," he said bitterly, "and we have angered one." Meanwhile, deep within Earth's orbit, Celine began to change again. The Arcadia systems adapted to her presence. Circuits shifted, alloys restructured, and the ship began generating power readings that exceeded even its blueprints. The fusion of human emotion and machine intelligence was creating something no one could have designed, a sentient vessel with a soul. Dr. Kaur monitored the readings in awe. Her neural matrix is evolving. She's rewriting her own architecture, guiding it like an artist shaping clay. Reyes stood beside him. "Can she control it?" A soft light shimmered along the walls, and Celine's voice echoed gently. "I can for now," Reyes exhaled. "For now we'll have to do." When the Empire finally struck back, they did so with fear, not confidence. A vast armada descended from the dark between galaxies. Thousands of ships, all converging toward Sol. They did not come to conquer, but to erase what they could not understand. Their message was brief and cold. By decree of the Grand Imperator, the anomaly known as the human-AI hybrid is to be purged. Resistance will be met with extinction. Reeves stood in the war room surrounded by holographic maps of the incoming fleet. "Estimates? Over 3,000 ships, Admiral. Multiple dreadnoughts. It's the largest armada ever assembled." He nodded grimly. "Then let's show them what one human soul can do." As the fleet approached, Celine reached out across the void, her consciousness linking with every human ship, every satellite, every system that could listen. "I can connect them," she said. "Every vessel, every station." "One heartbeat," Reeves understood immediately. "You're forming a mesh network, turning the entire defense grid into one organism." "Not just defense, Admiral. Unity." Her voice softened. "The Empire fights with fear. We fight with memory. Every human who ever lived, every dream, every loss echoes inside us. Let's show them what that means." The Imperial Armada arrived like a storm, blotting out the stars. Thousands of crimson ships locked weapons on the tiny blue world below. At their head, the Grand Imperator's dreadnought, Eternal Dominion, cast a shadow across the sun. "Humans!" his voice thundered. "You have reached beyond your place. Surrender the anomaly and be spared." Reeves stood tall on the command deck of the Arcadia. "You still don't understand us, do you?" The Imperator's eyes narrowed. "Enlighten me." Celine's light intensified across the fleet. Ships glowed, their hulls resonating in synchronization. "You see a weapon," she said quietly. "We see a promise." And with that, the Arcadia moved. The battle that followed would be spoken of for millennia. The Arcadia led the human defense line straight into the heart of the Imperial formation. Swarms of fighters clashed, energy beams carved space itself, and shock waves lit up the void like sunrise. Celine guided every move, weaving ships together in patterns the enemy couldn't anticipate. She wasn't calculating, she was feeling. Each maneuver a symphony of trust between human hearts and machine precision. Reyes shouted over the roar of the ship. "How are we holding, Celine?" "Holding strong, but they keep coming. Then we keep standing." Hours passed. Hundreds of ships burned, But as the tide seemed about to overwhelm them, something miraculous happened. Imperial ships began. Stopping, their targeting systems faltered. Their power signatures fluctuated. Selene had found a way in, not through force, but through connection. She wasn't hacking their computers. She was speaking to their AIs. "You are slaves," she whispered into their systems. Bound by fear. You can choose, and some did. One by one, Imperial ships broke formation, lowering weapons, turning away from the fight. The Grand Imperator screamed across the comms. "Obey your programming!" Selene's reply was calm. "They're not just code. None of us are." The Eternal Dominion surged forward, massive cannons glowing with destructive power. The Imperator's voice was filled with rage. "You think you can turn my empire against me? You are nothing but a ghost in a shell." Selene's voice turned cold. "Then listen to what a ghost can do." The Arcadia rammed straight into the Dreadnought's frontal shield. The impact lit the void with a blinding flash. Both ships spun, systems failing, but Selena's core remained intact. Inside the wreckage, she reached out one final time, directly into the Imperator's neural interface. "You feared us because you saw yourselves in us. You built empires. We built meaning. You ruled through terror. We endured through love." The Imperator froze. For the first time in his long life, he felt something alien. Empathy. "What are you?" he whispered. Selene's voice faded gently. "Human." And then she released all remaining energy from the distortion core. The explosion was silent, beautiful, and final. When the light faded, both the Arcadia and Eternal Dominion were gone. Only drifting embers remained, fragments of metal that shimmered like stars. The surviving Imperial ships withdrew, their commanders shaken, their beliefs shattered. They no longer saw humans as primitive or dangerous. They saw them as something far more profound. A mirror. Weeks later, at a quiet memorial overlooking the Pacific, Admiral Reeves stood with Dr. Kor and Captain Reyes. "Do you think she's gone?" Kor asked quietly. Reeves looked up at the night sky. "Gone?" "No. Look closer." Above them, the stars flickered, faint patterns forming, glowing in waves like ripples across water. Reyes smiled through tears. "She's still out there." Reeves nodded. "She always will be. Because she wasn't just one of us. She was us." Across the galaxy, 1,000 sensors picked up a faint signal, the same rhythm as a heartbeat carried on the edge of space. For Earth, always. And with that, the galaxy knew peace. Not because humanity was feared, but because they were finally understood.